Here at the Lincoln Park Zoo, our two youngest gorillas, Mandika and Jeke, are named after two regions in the jungles of the Republic of Congo. A third region is a patch of pristine forest named the Goualougo Triangle, where our scientists have worked for over 2 decades. So, what is the Goualougo Triangle?
The Goualougo Triangle is a very remote place in northern Republic of Congo. This area, we believe, had not had human incursions for hundreds of years, which makes it special because most of those places, even in remote areas of Central Africa, have had people over the last several hundred years have come through those areas. But this area, the animals were completely naive to humans.
In particular, the Goualougo Triangle is also the only place in the world where western lowland gorillas and chimpanzees share a habitat. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Hi, my name is David Blair Morgan, and I am a research fellow at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. And I'm also a co-director of the Goualougo and Mandika field projects in northern Republic of Congo.
For nearly 30 years, zoo scientist Dr. David Morgan and a team of Congolese researchers have worked to better understand endangered chimpanzee and gorilla populations in this area, including where they live, how they spend their time, and how they utilize tools to find food.
The Goualougo Triangle is located in the Nouabale-Ndoki National Park now. It's between two rivers, the Goualougo River and the Ndoki River, which their floodplains, those swamps around them, may have actually buffered it from humans coming into those areas. They're formidable swamps.
How do you get to the Goualougo Triangle? It's a long process. You start with a 14-hour flight, take a bus to the next plane, and take a 4-hour flight to the capital of the Republic of Congo, Brazzaville. The next day, you'll drive for about 8 hours and cross a river on a single vehicle barge to arrive at a camp in Bamosa. The next day begins your journey into the jungle.
So here we are paddling on the Ndoki River, getting into the thick of it. Those gentlemen doing the paddling, they'll also carry those bags out. There we are bailing out water. Those pirogues are usually very old, have holes in them that, of course, water starts coming in. And there have been many times when we felt like we weren't going to make it to the port before sinking. So it's a special time. And then as you get closer to Goualougo, you end up having to cross a swamp yourself to cross into the base camp area. All these camps are located on rivers. Typically, you have to cross those rivers to get to the campsites.
What has a typical day in the Goualougo Triangle look like?
The day-to-day things that happen when you start at Goualougo, it's early in the morning. Chimpanzees and gorillas, they're up right as the sun comes up. And so in order for us to get out, I usually get up at about 4:20 a.m. We go out all day. So we need backpacks, we need water, we need food for out in the field for everybody. We need the research equipment. So a lot of that preparation in the morning is just getting prepared to do that, to leave the camp at 6 a.m. after everybody's had breakfast. It is so special that everybody eats together and communicates. And here we are getting ready to walk out into the field. This is a special tree here. This is Afromosia. It's a protected species of tree now. It's got really red wood. It was highly coveted by the logging industry. They're found at low densities out there, one of those special trees of northern Congo. And here we are walking along out into the triangle itself. And there's remarkable lianes, large lianes like this one in these forests that we have no idea how old they are. That's at a particular spot that we typically rest at. And then there's, as you go along, fruit that's been consumed by some ape. That's either a chimpanzee or gorilla. It's a fruit wad that they've sucked the juices out of and then left it on the ground. And we use that information when we're tracking chimpanzees or gorillas to know how recently somebody was there and what they're feeding on. They get the juices from it and then leave it. Now sometimes we collect these fruit wads and we're able to get genetics from them, respiratory pathogens that might be in the chimpanzee's saliva that's covering that fruit wad. There are a lot of swamps out in these forests, and the gorillas and the chimpanzees, they go through these swamps. So that means we'll spend quite a bit of time in those swamps as well. But you can learn a lot from them feeding in these particular areas. Their high quality food items are located there, so gorillas love this herbaceous herb, high in salt. They'll go into those areas once or twice a month. They'll wash those herbs in these clearings, but it allows us to see them very well. We stay still when it's raining because it's very hard to hear elephants moving through the forest or gorillas moving through the forest. So we tend to head to an elephant path. We spread out quite a bit, and we have some people looking down one side of the path and other trackers looking down the other side of the path, because elephants, they do walk in the rain. And when they're walking on those elephant paths, if it's not raining or if it's raining, they can be incredibly, you can't hear them. Their feet are soft. And then we've come up on gorillas here. At this point, we heard chimpanzees vocalizing as well. So sometimes when you're walking around in the woods, you don't see too much, and then all of a sudden, everything seems to happen. You know? This was a large fig tree that was starting to come in, and we were extremely fortunate to hit this tree at this time, because it's one of the most important trees in Goualougo to the Moto chimpanzee community and the gorillas as well. Since I started in the late 1990s, Mike Fay talked about gorillas and chimpanzees feeding together in the same trees, and it possibly being a more common phenomena than everybody else saying it never happens. And this is one of those cases. So it was a special moment. They do it more than often, regularly around twice a month. Chimps and gorillas are together in these forests, eating at the same food resources or interacting. But that really hasn't been documented in many other forests, so it is special.
What threats face the Goualougo Triangle?
This is an active logging site. So the selective logging was happening there. That's a skidder trail. That's the road that they make to get to a particular tree stump that we were walking on. The threats to the Goualougo Triangle, or Mandika as well, where we do research, there's several. Poaching is a major threat, particularly with elephants early on. They're highly sought after for their ivory. The other threats is clear cutting, deforestation. We're fortunate in northern Congo that it's selective logging. And the company that we work with around the national park, they are forest stewardship certified, and that's the highest standard you can have in terms of forest certification. But other areas, other concessions that aren't certified, they're under enormous threats because they're not really being managed or regulated the same way that the forests around Ndoki are being managed. Disease is another threat that not only can we give the apes respiratory viruses and other pathogens, they can share their viruses with us as well. We have to respect distances to them. We have to protect them as well as our teams. We know 200 kilometers south of us in the early 2000s, high numbers of gorillas and chimpanzees disappeared because of Ebola. And we're talking 40, 50,000 apes during some of these outbreaks. Nobody was really out in those forests surveying at that time or doing research, but it's clear the populations out there were decimated.
What can we do to help?
The best people can do in the United States is stay informed. I think people in Chicago with the Lincoln Park Zoo, there's a great opportunity to learn more about Forest Stewardship Council certification. What does that mean in North America, as well as in northern Congo? How does that impact our lives? The more people become involved and start following projects, whether it's on butterflies or birds, the better off we're going to be, because you can learn an awful lot in terms of the science going on and how to get more involved with scientists locally or internationally.
How does the GTAP team work with local communities?
I mean, one of the great pleasures and discoveries we've made is over the years is the involvement of the local communities. And at Goualougo, we're fortunate to work with individuals from 3 communities that are outside of the Nouabale-Ndoki National Park at different distances. And over this period, we've learned an awful lot about chimpanzees and gorillas and their knowledge. Our knowledge has grown, so has the indigenous community's knowledge as well. This is really important because their knowledge, their local knowledge, their heritage is involved in this kind of work. They're the most important aspect of our work. We work in teams. It's essential for safety, but also employment opportunities. But we're not only creating jobs, we're creating careers. And many of these trackers, now their sons are involved and their brothers are involved, and it's extremely gratifying to see people from Congo working side by side from Central African Republic. There are multiple languages being spoken at any given time. We have researchers and trackers exchange between the 2 sites, sharing knowledge, experience, and it's much richer for that. It's a much safer and much more informed environment.
Pour moi, je suis vraiment passionné. Je suis très passionné pour les grands singes et la forêt en particulier. La préservation de l'environnement est très capitale. Parce que si on coupe toute la forêt, les animaux n'auront plus là où s'abriter, les animaux n'auront plus là où trouver la nourriture. Et également le changement climatique, parce qu'il y a un échange entre le CO2 et l'oxygène. Alors, pour moi, je pense pour le futur, il y a lieu de faire toujours la sensibilisation pour que les gens puissent se donner de l'importance au niveau de la forêt et les animaux de façon générale et les grands singes en particulier, pour que les générations futures puissent également bénéficier des mêmes faits que nous sommes en train de vivre maintenant là.
Why should people in Chicago care about what's happening in the Republic of Congo?
I mean, people in Chicago should care about what's happening in northern Republic of Congo at Ndoki because the tropical forests are essential to humanity. They're the lungs of the earth. They provide health resources and food resources for around the world. People in Chicago should also be concerned about places like Nouabale-Ndoki National Park and the forests around them because of diseases. We're coming off of the pandemic. We know how interconnected this world is now. We know diseases such as Ebola and anthrax can impact populations of apes, also humans in these areas. And those aspects, information we can take away from that, certainly can help us in terms of avoiding potentially future pandemics and also protecting the lungs of the world.
What's next for the Goualougo Triangle Ape Project?
I think the next several years is very exciting in terms of branching out and continuing our work in terms of monitoring how forests are changing outside of the Nouabale-Ndoki National Park, how it's impacting the apes, but also pulling in the human factor, the expansion of roads, the size of villages and how they're changing, using information we're gathering from gorillas and chimpanzees on diseases. How does it relate to them? How does it relate to future prospects in terms of survival? And help generate possibilities for them to protect the forests by earning an income. I mean, using tools that we've been working on, such as the Field Monitor program, to collect data that's usable. It would be wonderful if people out in these remote areas could also do similar things and be paid for that to protect the forests and generate incomes that they can help support their families for the longer term. So we've got a real opportunity here to do that, particularly because there's still a lot of forest left and a lot of wildlife.
So much information has come out of Goualougo, and they're not even close to done. In the future, GTAP will continue its work in reaching out to communities and spreading the word about conservation issues, the interconnectivity between human and ape health, food sustainability, and more. Much has been accomplished, but there's so much more to learn and do. With your help, we can make sure future generations can benefit from the resources found within the Goualougo Triangle.